It's the 70s. People are rocking their poofy hair, their bell-bottom jeans. Well, anyways, this was particularly notable for one woman named Colleen Stan. At 20 years old, she was an Oregon woman planning a routine trip south. Her destination was California, where she was going to celebrate a friend's birthday. Like a lot of young people in her era, she chose to hitchhike. Her journey began on Interstate 5 from Oregon, heading towards California. This seemingly innocent decision, which was a common mode of practice and travel at the time, placed her into a path of extreme premeditated violence. As she stood on the roadside with her thumb pointed out, looking at all the cars pass her by, and just walking along the road, a van pulled over. And behind the wheel was Cameron Hooker, traveling with his wife, Janice, and their infant child. She thought, they're pretty innocent looking. It's a family. I think this is safe. So she remembers at the time that the man behind the wheel looked like he was dirty and he just got off work. But the wife holding the baby was a good layer of safety. This was a normal domestic family, she thought. This was a good ride, a safe ride, and she took the ride. This would lead her down a path of destruction and perhaps one of the most dark cases that we've covered on this channel to date. As this was not a random act, it was a calculated strategy of where the Hookers, and that's his last name, weaponized the very demeanor of being a domestic family to get hitchhikers. Hi, and welcome to the Decomposing Flower podcast. I'm your host, Kira, and with me is Jen. Everything we've gathered is from trustful sources, documents, and other pieces of media on the internet. So if we say anything wrong, just take it with a grain of salt. We're taking it from the internet, and sometimes sources tell different things. But if you have any other commentary that you want to add, you can add it in the comment section down below. Start a discussion. Let us know what you think about the case. We also have a Google sheet that if you have any case suggestions, you can make there. In today's case, there's going to be, like I said, a lot of violence. There's a lot of SA. It's a particularly dark and gruesome episode. So if you're not in the right headspace for that, you can definitely check out one of our lighter episodes. Go get yourself a boba tea, and we'll catch you in the next episode. So we talked about her journey, right? So as soon as she got in the car and she thought she was safe, immediately things kind of started going wrong. She was kidnapped and transported to the home that he shared with Janice and his child in Red Bluff, California. So along the way, going to California, there's this nice big open road. We're going to California. Sweet, that's where I'm going too. All of a sudden, the road got more and more bumpy, and before you knew it, she was locked in a basement. In the basement, the true nature of the couple's depravity was revealed. She was kept bound and naked and subject to immediate violence of all natures. She was tortured and sexually abused. The cruelty was not just done by Cameron, but also Janice, as she watched him torture her again and again. She was always enabling it, and there was just this disgusting error in the room. Like, this is supposed to be a woman, and she's witnessing another woman having to go through this. Like, how would you not be horrified? Janice, at least in the early stages of her capture, was an active participant in the degradation and the abuse of her. And suddenly the basement confinement really escalated to a structured long form of torture. And I gotta say, this is awful, because after the first terrifying night, she was tied up and put into a wooden box measuring 3 feet by 6 feet. This custom-built container became her primary world. In the subsequent months and years, she was kept in this coffin-like box, which was right underneath the couple's bed. can you just imagine there's this woman trapped in a coffin underneath your bed, and she has to listen to, their intimate married life space happening just above her? And this was not like a large hidden room by any chance. It was a space designed to make her feel like she was constrained and she didn't have any sense of what was going on. For years, she was kept in this box for as much as 23 hours a day. It was the ultimate form of dissociation and psychological just torture, being confined to this box of darkness and silence for nearly all hours of the day, but being able to hear your captors walking around and wondering when will be the next moment that they pull you out. You're almost wondering, like, do I stay in the box? Is it better in the box or is it worse out there? Like, just horrible. So the reason why they kept her in the box was really just to transform her from being her person into being their object, accessible only when they chose to open up the lid.
And the fact they have a baby too?
Baby's just in the same house as well.
That's so crazy.
Grew up with a woman underneath the bed. But just wait, it gets worse. So Cameron Hooker understood that physical restraint alone could be overcome. The true longevity in captivity required total psychological enslavement. After 7 months of physical and sexual abuse, Cameron introduced Stan to the concept of the company. He described the company as a powerful international organization, comparing it to the mafia. This manipulation shifted a massive power control. Cameron not necessarily positioned him as her primary torturer, but just a cog in the wheel, and that there's an even bigger, worse organization out there. And they know exactly who she is. If she ran away, they would come and get her, and they would go and get her family. They would nail her to a cross and leave her there for days. She said later she was so broken that she believed him unquestionably. So not only does she have a physical prison, being a coffin, but now she's confined to the room and never wanting to leave, because if she leaves, her whole family will die and she'll be suffered worse than this torture that she's in right now. It was like this for 7 years. In the years, there was a repeating cycle of confinement, abuse, and despair. She endured beatings, essays, and systematic torture, which I will not describe on the podcast because this is all about the victim. We don't need to talk about what he did to her. But during her time in her box, she often contemplated her existence. There were many times that she thought she was going to die, and she would think, why are they keeping me alive? I should just die. She really learned how to separate herself from her body and what was going on around her. She kind of lost the ability to, I don't know how to say this nicely, but like feel anger or resist while she was captive, because she was so dissociated and just forced into the situation. After 7 years of this captivity, she finally emerged from the ordeal in 1984. What exactly happened was Janice was growing uncomfortable with her being there and actually aided in her freedom. Her freedom did not immediately bring peace. After, I described, or the anger didn't come while she was captive, but when she was able to escape, there were so many complicated emotions happening. Her suppression of anger and just unimaginable grief to what had happened to her had been locked away that whole time. Janice. Oh, let's talk about Janice for a moment. So this really makes my blood boil. She's probably one of the most frustrating elements to, I guess, the legality of this whole case. So she actively participated in the torture and the initial captivity of her. However, when the case came to trial, Janice claimed that she was also a victim of her husband's extensive abuse. Janice was never prosecuted for the role she played in the kidnapping and captivity because she struck a deal with prosecutors. This decision created a major legal ambiguity. Honestly, it pisses me off. And she was able to secure immunity in exchange for her testimony against Cameron. So all those years that Stan was trapped underneath the bed and she knew about it the whole time and did nothing, she just got away scot-free. Oh yeah, I'll subject my whole family to this and no problem. But, yeah, a couple years later, this doesn't seem right. Like, I feel a little uncomfy that she's here.
I could understand if she was like a victim of abuse to an extent. She also didn't try to stop it or get her help.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not here to victim blame or anything, but at some point, you have to know what you're doing is wrong. There's a line in the sand. That's what the fuck. Just so not okay. So, after the trial and everything, she reverted to her maiden name, Lashley, and later pursued a career in the mental health field, becoming a registered associate social worker.
What?
Yeah, you want to know what's worse? Like, she went on to work with even more people who would go on to be victims of abuse.
Oh my God.
Yeah, let me help others.
That's crazy, actually.
She makes my blood boil. So now her and Stan continue to live in California. The prosecution of Cameron Hooker was also another legal challenge. Given the unique nature of the captivity, the defense attempted to argue that Stan continued to remain free due to the manipulation, but the people who were going against the case tried to prove that she had been enslaved. So there was just this whole back and forth, they're trying to go for the max, and then the other people are like, no, like she chose her volition to stay there just because she was a little confused.
It's crazy. It's like she was in a box.
Yeah. So the prosecution was able to convict Cameron in 1985. He was found guilty of several heinous crimes, including the kidnapping of Stan, using a knife, the abduction, rape, and SA. The outcome of the trial was a rare moment of clarity in the case. Thank goodness for San Mateo County's Superior Judge, Clarence Knight, as he sentenced Cameron Hooker to 104 years behind bars in state prison. The judge delivered a searing statement of the defendant's character, saying that Cameron was the most dangerous psychopath he had ever encountered, which is very strong concerning he's a judge and he sees a lot of horrible, horrible cases. He said that he would remain incarcerated for the remainder of his life, and that was a promise. There's also another case, which I don't know if they took direct inspiration or what, but there's another case where another box was involved. And I kind of want to get into it. This case, which is called the Butcher's Box, it centers on a man named Gary Simons in 1966. He was a local butcher in Moss Points, Mississippi, and he anticipated the arrival of a victim and had a perfect human-sized box hidden in his house, just waiting for his fantasies to come to life. And it wouldn't be long before he found his victims, very tragically. 18-year-old Brooke Webster and her boyfriend, Jeffrey Wolf. I don't know if this is the correct term, but unlike Stan's captivity, Weber was allowed to escape the box much more quickly than her. There's also another more recent case of human remains being found in a freezer, which happened in January of 2004. The head and hands of a teenager were found in a deep freezer that had been left behind by previous owners of a home in Grand Junction, Colorado. Through DNA testing in 2024, the victim was identified as Amanda Learall, who is believed just to be 16 years old when she went missing in 2005. Definitely, she's still being investigated as a homicide, and there's kind of no record that she was ever reported missing, unfortunately. It's really hard to figure out what exactly happened to her, but it could be very likely that she was trapped inside this freezer. It's just to say that there's a couple cases involving this box, and that the unfortunate continuation of this pattern of trapping people still is a thing that happens. Luckily, Stan managed to find purpose after her whole ordeal, and she began to actually help others. She joined and began volunteering for Reading Women's Refuge Center, which is an organization dedicated to helping abused women. She was able to utilize her horrific experience to help support others and transforming her narrative from this awful tragedy into something that might be able to provide a little bit of healing for others, even though she's still dealing with her trauma. And that's where we're at in today's case. If you'd like us to talk more about any of the cases that I mentioned briefly, we would totally go into that. There just wasn't a lot of information, which is why I didn't go into a whole deep dive. Yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care of yourself. Bye.